The cameras were already rolling, but she hadn't even spoken yet. Inside the U.S. Capitol, the hearing room was packed wall-to-wall journalists in the rafters, aides tapping frantically on phones, microphones blinking red. It wasn't just another day in Congress. It was theater, power theater, and Jasmine Crockett had just entered through the side door. No one stood, no hand was extended. An aide motioned silently to the last chair at the far end of the table, a seat so distant from the central mic it felt more like exile than assignment. Her nameplate was wrong. One letter off, but everyone knew. In this room, details mattered. And this one wasn't a mistake. It was a message. She sat slowly, setting down a slim folder, one finger trailing its spine like it held something volatile. Across from her, Republican staffers chuckled just loud enough for the audio text to catch it, but soft enough to deny it later. The laugh wasn't about a joke. It was about power. Then the room shifted. Double doors swung open, and in walked Speaker Mike Johnson. The applause came before the man even reached his chair. Loud, deliberate, a coronation disguised as courtesy. His suit was perfect. His stride almost theatrical. A politician who'd spent years rehearsing the look of legitimacy. He didn't look at Jasmine. He didn't have to. The room did that for him. This is my chamber. You're lucky they let you sit. As the clapping subsided, the chairman turned to Jasmine. You may proceed, Congresswoman Crockett. She leaned in, eyes calm, voice steady. Mr. Chairman, regarding the review of Section 4. That was as far as she got. Bang. Mike Johnson's gavel hit the desk, not to restore order but to send a message. Hold it, he said sharply. Before the gentlewoman from Texas gives us another TikTok moment, let's remember this is a hearing, not a content farm. The Republican side chuckled in unison. Rehearsed. Coordinated. Cutting. Johnson smirked. We're here to discuss appropriations, not hashtags. What we need are lawmakers who understand the federal ledger, not influencers playing dress-up with budget binders. He didn't use her name. He didn't have to. What he said next landed like a slap wrapped in silk. Some of us built careers on governance, others on viral theatrics. The room was no longer a hearing. It was a setup, a trap. And Jasmine Crockett had been cast as the spectacle. But she didn't react. Not with anger, not with defense. She simply watched him. Her eyes never blinked, never strayed. Like she was calculating something, measuring something, waiting. And for a split second, just one Johnson's smirk faltered. He thought he'd silenced her. But what he mistook for silence was precision. She wasn't there to win the room. She was there to rearrange it. And inside that thin folder in front of her, something waited. Not a retort. Not a soundbite. A detonation. Mike Johnson didn't stop. He leaned back in his chair like a professor addressing a student he didn't think belonged in the class. The gentlewoman, he said, drawing out the word as if it didn't quite fit her, might consider reading the appendix before referencing it again. This isn't a place for grandstanding. It's a budget hearing. Laughter rippled again. Not loud, but intentional. She may be popular online, he added with a shrug, but here, we're dealing with real policy, not Instagram captions. He gestured toward her folder with a smirk. Not everything can be solved with filters and catchphrases. It wasn't about disagreement. It was dismissal. It was designed to make her smaller, to turn her presence into a punchline. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The words did the work. But Jasmine didn't flinch. Didn't blink. She didn't check her notes. Didn't fire back. She simply listened like someone memorizing the way an opponent moved before delivering the knockout. What looked like silence was strategy. Her hands remained still, but her eyes, they didn't drift. They locked on Johnson's face, calm and unyielding. Not with rage, with record. Because while he spoke to cameras, she was speaking to something else, something deeper. The room might not have known it yet, but Jasmine Crockett had come prepared. And every word he threw at her, she filed it away, not as insult, as evidence. The mockery wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of his unraveling. You thought she came to play defense? Think again. Because while they laughed, she read. While they clapped, she traced the money. And now the woman they tried to humiliate? She's about to light up the chamber with something they never expected. Receipts. Real ones. Stay with us. Because the moment she opens that folder, everything changes. Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She reached forward, slowly, deliberately, and tapped the folder they had all mocked just minutes earlier. 2 fingers. 2 taps. And the screen at the front of the chamber came to life. No monologue. No drama. Just rows of cold, clinical numbers glowing under the Congressional seal. This, she said, voice low but crystal clear, is a certified audit from the Office of the Inspector General. The room stilled. It outlines over $93 million in expedited infrastructure funds routed through Section 17B. But here's what's unusual. She clicked. 3 company names appeared. No public websites, no visible operations. Each had received a single federal payment. And each company, Jasmine continued, shares something else, or should I say, someone else. A 4th screen loaded. Grant Holland, political consultant, longtime strategist, and personal friend, to Speaker Mike Johnson. In every company, either CEO or majority shareholder. And the timing? She asked, letting the silence thicken. 10 days, that's how long it took for each payment to land after meetings with the Speaker's office. She didn't look at him. Not yet. Another click. One final document filled the screen. Letterhead from the Speaker's office. Single paragraph. Short, direct, signed. Proceed immediately. Do not delay with formal review. Gasps. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't a theory. This was a blueprint. Signed. Dated. Ordered. And suddenly the table turned. Because Jasmine Crockett hadn't just come with questions. She came with answers they couldn't escape. The folder was damning. But what came next was irreversible. Jasmine didn't gloat. She didn't move from her seat. She simply reached down and pressed a small black button beside her mic. The overhead screen shifted. The data disappeared. In its place, a pulsing waveform on a black screen. No intro, no names, just a quiet static. Then a voice. Familiar. Calm. Unmistakable. They don't read the appendix, the voice said. That's the point. We just bury it in line items. No one asks. No one notices. Gasps echoed across the room. Some looked around, hoping someone would deny it. No one did. The voice continued. Americans are too busy worrying about gas prices and loans to care where a few million go. We slide it through. Always have. Jasmine didn't flinch. Her hands rested calmly on the table. She didn't need to explain what they were hearing, because everyone already knew. This wasn't a theory. It wasn't an accusation. It was a confession. From the man still sitting at the head of the table, now frozen in place. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. And for the first time all day, Mike Johnson wasn't holding the room. He was buried beneath it. Because the voice wasn't Jasmine's. It was his. And no amount of power could silence a playback. The audio had landed like a missile. But Jasmine wasn't finished. She didn't need outrage. She brought receipts with timestamps. She opened a second folder, clipped in red. 4 printed emails, marked with confidential, internal routing. Each slid onto the screen one after another. Email 1. Subject, vendor diversion confirmation, keep external. Message, move total via grants vehicle. Avoid naming until Q3. Use legacy pack format if questioned. The room tightened. Lawmakers shifted. Staffers stopped typing. Email 2. Coordinate Shell invoices with Holland before disclosure deadline. Confirm Johnson's sign-off. Jasmine paused. Let the words speak. She didn't narrate. She let the ink do that. Email 3. A flowchart budget line sliced into thirds. Caption. Split into 3 firms to avoid thresholds. Rotate signatories. And then came email 4. Short, unambiguous. Speaker approved. Proceed. Same structure as February. She looked up. This, she said plainly, is not miscommunication. It's choreography. The gasps were quieter now, not from surprise, but from realization. They weren't hearing a theory. They were watching a map of deception. And the man who approved every step was still sitting at the head of the room. But now, no one was looking at him for leadership. They were looking at him like evidence. Because this wasn't a paperwork error. It was a plan. And Jasmine Crockett? She had just made it public. The documents were still glowing on the screen. But Mike Johnson was unraveling in real time. He slammed his hand on the desk. The sound cracked through the chamber like thunder. Then came the shouting. "You're disgracing this institution," he barked, finger pointed straight at Jasmine. "This isn't oversight, it's sabotage. A stunt. A political ambush." The volume rose. The mask dropped. "You are a danger to this chamber, Congresswoman. A danger to truth." But he didn't get to finish. Because Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, calm as ever, and asked one simple question. "Mr. Speaker, are you calling the truth garbage?" Her voice didn't rise. Her tone didn't shift. But the words struck like a blade. Clean. Surgical. Johnson froze. For the first time all day, he had nothing. No rebuttal. No deflection. No applause to hide behind. Just silence. The kind that doesn't feel quiet. It feels heavy. Because that one sentence? It was more than a question. It was a mirror. And Mike Johnson couldn't look into it. His jaw tightened. But no sound came. The Speaker of the House, the man who opened with insults, wielded titles like shields, and tried to bury a congresswoman under protocol, was now drowning in his own silence. And Jasmine? She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just waited. Because some collapses don't start with explosions. They start with a man running out of lies. The room had frozen, but one man was still breathing differently. From the far left bench, Representative Caleb Rose stood. No gestures, no hesitation, just presence. Known for his independence, a man who rarely spoke unless the moment demanded it. And this moment did. He didn't look to his colleagues. He didn't ask permission. He looked straight ahead and spoke. "Mr. Chairman," he said calmly, voice like a gavel falling through silence, "I am formally calling for an immediate ethics investigation into the conduct of Speaker Mike Johnson." Gasps, pens dropped, phones raised. The chamber didn't stir, it snapped. It wasn't just what he said. It was who said it. Not a partisan rival, not a firebrand, but a man known for restraint. Up in the press gallery, the dam broke. Click, click, click. Headlines began writing themselves midair. Number Speaker exposed trended within minutes. And outside the Capitol, the story hit the streets. Not with outrage, with clarity. Teachers, veterans, nurses, students, they gathered not in protest, but in purpose. Some held signs quoting Jasmine word for word. "Truth is not garbage." Cable news split to live feeds. Anchors leaned in. Editorial boards scrambled to issue statements. It wasn't just a call for accountability anymore. It was a national reckoning. And in that moment, it became clear. Jasmine Crockett hadn't just silenced power. She had woken the people it tried to ignore. She could have run to the cameras. She didn't. She could have claimed victory. She didn't. Jasmine Crockett walked out of that hearing room the same way she walked in, with calm, with focus, and without a script. Reporters flooded the hallway. Television producers called nonstop. 3 major networks offered her primetime interviews that same night. She declined them all. Not because she was avoiding the spotlight, but because she knew what that hearing was really about. "I didn't come here to be famous," she told her staff quietly. "I came here to work. No podium, no performative tweets, no brand rollout." Instead, Jasmine headed straight back to her office, sleeves still rolled, folder still in hand. By the time her name hit the top of trending searches in America, she was already drafting oversight legislation. And that's why the country listened. Because while the headlines shouted her name, she whispered something louder. Discipline. She didn't turn her moment into a movement. The people did. Artists began sketching her in grayscale, standing tall beside burning gavels and broken red tape. Professors replayed her cross-examination in classrooms. Veterans said she reminded them of real leadership, the kind that doesn't talk over others. It outlasts them. She didn't roar. She didn't demand applause. She didn't ask for power. She earned it. And in a world addicted to noise, her silence became a symbol, not of absence, but of control. Jasmine Crockett didn't ask to be a symbol. She didn't come to perform. She came prepared. No entourage. No slogan. Just a folder. And the truth. And that, somehow, was revolutionary. She didn't explode. She didn't beg for airtime. She simply walked into a rigged room and refused to play by its rules. Not with volume, with evidence. Not with applause, with discipline. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the bar. And in doing so, she gave the rest of us something we haven't had in far too long. A reason to believe that integrity still matters. Because what Jasmine proved inside that hearing wasn't just that power can be confronted, it's that power collapses when you shine enough light on it. But here's the truth. This moment cannot belong to her alone. It belongs to all of us who watched, who nodded, who whispered, finally. Because if one woman can sit at the edge of a table, misspelled name, broken mic, and still flip the entire room, then we can't afford to keep sitting down, hoping someone else will do it again. Jasmine didn't need to be loud. She needed to be clear. And now that she has been, the next move is ours. Write, call, organize. Ask your representatives where they were when the speaker went silent. Support ethics reform not just when it's trending, but when it's buried under amendments. Tell your kids about the day someone proved silence can be more powerful than shouting. Because democracy doesn't survive on heroes. It survives on action. And the most dangerous thing we can do is forget what we saw. So don't forget. Don't let this become just another clip. Don't scroll past it like it didn't happen. Stand, speak, push. Because Jasmine Crockett stood up and the country followed. Now it's your turn. Thank you for staying with us through this story. If it moved, you share it, talk about it. And remember, silence isn't strength, but used right, it can bring power to its knees.